I discovered manifestation almost 20 years ago, and I have conflicting feelings about saying that because that makes me feel old. But over the span of these last nearly 2 decades, I have submerged myself in understanding better these philosophies and these teachings of the power to consciously and deliberately change the circumstances of your life. When I say that I have read it all, tried it all, tested it all, I mean that quite literally. I have read dozens, if not hundreds, of books. I have watched countless documentaries, read through lectures, attended conferences. I have tested and applied thousands of techniques. And I am now in a place where I can say sincerely and without hesitation that I'm living a life that I would have never, ever thought possible. I have seen miraculous change in both myself and, of course, my circumstances that followed. I have manifested physical health and well-being. I have manifested my person, my partner, my best friend. Just recently, I have manifested my dream house, where I could begin to set up operations for the biggest desire that I have left, and that is opening an animal sanctuary and rescue and rehabilitation. I have overcome crippling anxiety and depression. At one point, it was so bad, I no longer wanted to be on this planet. I no longer wanted to be here, but I'm still here. Now, I do not say all this to brag or to sound arrogant or anything like that. I say this because I know from the bottom of my soul what most of the people here watching this video, new on their journeys, are going through. I believe that there are ways that we can simplify conscious manifestation. And in fact, for the last several years, nearly a decade, that has been exactly what I have set out to do. And I've been able to narrow it down into 3 fundamentals that are crucial to know and understand when it comes to manifestation. And everything else you can completely get rid of. Everything else can be completely irrelevant. As long as you know and understand these 3 things, you will see a change in your life and your well-being. Just as a quick side note, this is not the same as Neville Goddard's 3 fundamentals. These are my own steps or fundamentals when it comes to conscious manifestation, when it comes to the radical transformation of self that produces the radical change in your environment, your circumstances, and the people around you. So if you're interested in simplifying this process, this video is definitely for you. The first step or fundamental: no matter the change that you are seeking outside of you, you must remain the focus here. No exception. And more specifically, I mean the focus needs to be on first getting yourself to a state of wellness, to a better state of well-being, to a state that is more relaxed and more calm, more grounded first. The sad reality is that many people, I would argue most people, stumble on to these teachings, find out about the law of assumption when they are in a desperate state. Most likely it is when we have seen better days, we are not doing too great mentally or physically or both, and feeling very much like this is our last resort or only hope. Sometimes it feels so bad that all we can focus on is trying to get something to change as quickly as possible. A lot of the times we are deeply hurt, deeply angry, deeply saddened, very uncertain. And if these are the kind of states that we are occupying while trying to manifest something, we're likely going to have a very difficult time with this. No matter what it is that you desire, the first objective is to create the ideal inner environment, always. Sadly, we are so accustomed to look outside of ourselves and be reliant and dependent on something outside of us for said happiness and for said well-being. And of course, to be clear, ideally the goal is to see the external change and to enjoy the external changes that happen. But this has to first and foremost come from the internal change that takes place within us. We cannot create something beautiful on the outside from an internal state to be desired. Arguably the biggest problem that people run into is trying to manifest from a place of fear, desperation, or frustration. And this only leads to inner fighting, resistance, and all-around double-mindedness. It is going to feel incredibly challenging to try to manifest something good from a state that feels terrible. which is why one of the first things that we need to focus on is that change of self. And that is a phrase that gets thrown around a lot in this community, but I'm not sure if people fully grasp what that means. That means we must first and foremost get ourself to a better state of consciousness, a more compatible state of consciousness with that of what we desire. And it certainly doesn't help that we live in a day and age that is burned out. The vast majority of people are overstressed, over anxious, under pressure, and all around not in a very good mental state. So much so that it can feel almost impossible just to allow ourselves to relax. And just to make it abundantly clear for those who may not know, a state of relaxation, first and foremost, is crucial to this practice. We want to start to make these changes from a place where we feel more relaxed, where we feel calm, where we feel at ease in mind and body. When we are anxious, when we are fearful, when we are desperate, it is going to activate full fight or flight mode. It is going to throw our entire physiology and nervous system out of whack. We become unable to think clearly, and instead we revert to habitual, learned ways of behavior. We become distracted by these fears. We are unable to keep our focus and attention on that state of the wish fulfilled. It will feel difficult, if not impossible, to actually embody that space of what we desire to experience. In this state of anxiousness or unworthiness, there is no distinction between your habitual learned ways of behavior and yourself. Basically, you're going to find yourself distracted and unable to maintain the state of the wish fulfilled when in fight or flight mode. And I can make a whole ass video talking about this, about the nervous system response and how it affects our ability to manifest. If you're interested in that video or want to learn more about it, drop me a comment below. But it is once the body and mind are in a state of balance and peace, we have full access to the power of imagination and to focus our attention purely on what we desire instead of what we don't want. Step 2 in this process, pillar number 2, is to feel yourself in the state of the wish fulfilled. This was at the core of Neville Goddard's teachings and what we are most often taught when it comes to conscious manifestation. To feel into what it would be like. Put yourself in the shoes of that version of you who already has what you desire. This is where techniques come in. This is where we utilize different tools to help us encapsulate and embody that state of the wish fulfilled. Sadly, this is also a concept in and of itself that is vastly misunderstood. For most people, when they hear the word feeling, when they hear that you must feel into that state that you desire, the mind immediately goes to an emotion. The misconception here is that we must feel a strong emotion, such as bliss or euphoria. It should feel like we're flying high over the moon, hearts and stars and rainbows, like we're bursting at the seams with happiness. That is not what this is implying. This has nothing to do with emotion per se. By feeling, what we mean is the feeling of naturalness, the feeling of normalcy, to get yourself used to, normalized, and acclimated to what that would be like if what you desire were now yours. And the simplest question that we can ask ourselves to begin with this identifying, to begin to identify with the state desired, is how would it feel? How would it feel if right now you had everything that you desired? How would it feel right now if you were already the person that had everything that you desire to be? And we allow ourselves to go there. We allow ourselves to ruminate on that question. We allow ourselves to get intimate and familiar with that question and what that answer would be for us. Whatever comes up for us. This is the process of re-identification. This is the process of redefining you, who you would be in this scenario if you already had what you desire. The feeling is more of a knowingness. And I want to give you an example. Think of something that you know without question to be true, such as your name. Now say to yourself, my name is blank, whatever your name might be. Notice how when you say this statement, There is no second guessing. There is nothing there in opposition. There is nothing that questions that statement because you already know that to be true. And because you know that your name is your name, there is no effort you have to put into that statement. You do not have to put anything behind that to make that statement feel more believable. This is the feeling of naturalness that we are talking about. This is the feeling that we are saying here when we say to feel into the state of the wish fulfilled. But because that word feeling can be so damn confusing, I prefer to say define that state of the wish fulfilled. Identify with that state of the wish fulfilled. Experience what you want to experience in imagination as if you were experiencing it in the 3D. Now, if you are having difficulty with this, if you are noticing resistance to the idea of imagining something different than what you believe to be true, if you are noticing yourself getting distracted, or you're noticing that inner critic coming up for you, telling you all the things that you fear and you doubt, if any of these things are occurring while imagining that feeling of the wish fulfilled, then you want to refer back to step 1, that first pillar. First start from a state of wellness, or at the very least, a state of neutrality, a state where you feel calm, a state where you feel relaxed, at ease, and then go into imagination. Because the more relaxed we are first, the more natural and effortless it will be to access and tap into that power of imagination. And the third and final step, the third pillar, is consistency, because we're playing the long game here. We live in an age of shrinking attention spans and instant gratification. Overwhelmingly, we want what we want and we want it now. And that is completely understandable. But due to our impatience, due to our habits, due to the fact that we may fall back sometimes into that old state, it is far too easy for us to get frustrated or distracted, which, by the way, distraction is the ego's biggest weapon. It is far too easy for us to get distracted or discouraged or feel like we want to give up if we do not see results in a certain amount of time, be it days or even weeks. We must do away with this idea of instant gratification and expecting instant results in the 3D. I may get some flack for this, but quite frankly, I do not care, because all too often we get sucked into clickbaity titles such as manifest in 24 hours or manifest in 3 minutes, whatever the case may be. And if it doesn't happen in that allotted time for us, we quickly get discouraged and we doubt and we question, and it feels like we have to start all over again. Inconsistency is the root of all double-mindedness, and quick fixes rarely lead to lasting change. Now, I know there are a lot of people that do not want to hear this. They do not want to hear that it may actually take some consistency and practice with repetition for things to start becoming familiar and for things to start becoming muscle memory in terms of this practice, in terms of how we imagine, in terms of how we react and what we assume. Which is why if after a couple of days you're looking around you and not seeing any results and constantly monitoring the 3D and checking for progress and feeling discouraged, that avenue is certainly not going to bring you what you desire. Just like learning any new skill, just like everything that we once did not know and now know today, it took us repetition, whether that was learning how to ride a bicycle, learning how to drive a car, learning a new language or a musical instrument. It is the consistency and repetition that is going to yield your results faster. This means being doers of the word. This means not just learning about these teachings, not just spending the day watching videos and browsing Reddit and Facebook. This means actually and perpetually, this means learning to go to your imagination, grow in imagination, allow yourself to be bold in imagination, go outside the boundaries of what feels normal and familiar to you. Because at first, your desire is not going to feel normal or familiar. And that's the point, because it isn't. This is a whole new state of consciousness. And let's use Neville's analogy of buying a new pair of shoes. When we buy a new pair of shoes, we may notice that at first it feels a bit stiff. It might feel a little awkward. Maybe it's not entirely comfortable yet. But the more that we wear these shoes, the more that we continue to put these shoes on and walk in them, inevitably they will break in and just start to become the most comfortable and familiar thing for you. The same thing applies to states of consciousness. So do not go into this with the mentality that I'm going to radically change decades and decades of conditioning in 1 or 2 days. And if I don't have all that changed in 1 or 2 days, then I'm going to throw a fit and give up. There will be times of frustration. You will have times where you spiral. You will have times where you react. You'll have times when you slip back into those old thinking patterns and old ways of being. Accept it, and when it happens, commit to yourself that you are going to move back to that state that you desire. You are going to redirect yourself as soon as you can, when you can, back to that state of the wish fulfilled. Because here's the thing that I want everyone to clearly understand. When it comes to your desires, you will be tempted at times to give up on your desire and move on. You will be tempted to throw your hands up and throw this away. Here's the thing that you need to know and understand. When you have a burning desire for something or someone, giving up on that desire will not release you from the desire to have it, to experience it. This leads us to one option: to persist, to show up for ourselves every single day, commit to ourselves every single day, and to be stubbornly consistent until we get what we want. Is that clear? Good. So to wrap this up neatly in one big bow, the process of manifestation simplified into 3 steps, 3 pillars, if you will. Number 1, make yourself the priority, first and always. Number 2, to use your imagination to feel into that state of the wish fulfilled. And by feeling, what I mean is to experience, to identify with, to know that you are. Experience in imagination what your life would be like and look like if you now had what you desire. Until that state of consciousness is the most natural state in the world for you. And number 3, be consistent. Be stubbornly persistent. Inconsistency is the root of all double-mindedness and will lead to inconsistent results. If you can remember to follow these 3 things, you will see a radical change in your life. But do not take my word for this. Make sure to experience it yourself. Because if you try this, if you become a doer of the word, if you genuinely set out to follow all 3 of these steps that I have laid out for you here, you will come to find who you truly are and that you can be whatever you desire to be. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I hope you found it helpful and informative. If you did enjoy it, please be sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you're interested in checking out any of my other resources, I have links down below to things such as my coaching programs, my workshops and masterclasses, my blog, my podcast, my social channels. Got a ton of resources down in the description box below, so don't forget to check that out. Also be sure to check out my other videos on this channel. Be sure to check out my Manifestation Fundamentals playlist. Each video is a different topic, but they all talk about how to manifest the best life ever. So until we meet again, you guys, as always, please take care, be well, and never forget how powerful you truly are. Happy manifesting, guys.